It is truly an honor and a schis to be here tonight, commemorating the Yutzat of our believed Rebitzin. Now I see there are a lot of young faces here. There are some faces that probably knew the Rebitzin personally, but there's a lot of young faces here. So I'm going to describe to you, we had the very interesting drusha from Rabbi Shapiro talking about the Rebitzin, al pi Chassidus. But I'm going to share with you my personal recollections and my personal memories and my personal perspective of the Rebitzin. Now, it's about Wurst, it's do a Meise from the Saar Shulam of Belz, the Erste Belzer Rebbe. There's also a Zayd of mine. And they say the same Meise happened by the Rebbe Marash. That Amul, there was a bunch of Chassidim Farbrengen sich zusammen. And one of the Chassidim said, you know, there's a tremendous segillah. If a Motzah Shabbos Kodesh, you say a Meise for the Baal Shem Tov, it's a sigil of Panusa Toiva. And the Belzer Rebbe said, it's a nicht emes, it's a nicht emes, it's a nicht emes, ich leigen des mit drei Sibbes. It's not true, it's not true, it's not true. I disagree with this for three reasons. One, it's lav dafke Motzah Shabbos. Aber jede smul, any time you say over a Meise from the Tzaddik, you have that segillah. Zweitens, lav dafke of Panusa Toiva, but when you say the Sipur from a Tzaddik, it's mesigil of all broches. And he said, lav dafke from the Baal Shem Tov. Now, from the Tzeilt an Meise from a Tzaddik, and he said the Lushan, a fill of ins, even on us, it's mesigil of alle broches. So I'm sure the fact that we are sitting here tonight commemorating the Rebitzin, and we're talking about the Rebitzin, and we're saying stories about the Rebitzin, ich bin sicher, the Aftoche from the Belzeru and the Mazuk from the Marash, we're all going to be gebenched with alle bruches, mit Bune, Chaye, Mezoyne, alle bruches, us being here tonight. Ken you sein. Now, I also want to apologize in advance if maybe some of you have heard some of the stories that I've had with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. But I'd like to explain to you, now if you've ever seen a diamond merchant dealing with his diamonds, so versteht sich, the cheap diamonds, you know, the half carat, the carat diamonds, he buys, he sells, goodbye, good Shabbos. But the chushva diamonds that he has, the really precious diamonds that he has, he takes out and he looks at it and he enjoys it and he'll put back into a safe. He'll take it out again and he'll treasure that. Rabbi said the same thing with me. The stories that I had this chiyuv to interact, these personal interactions with the Rebbe and the Rebitzin, to me these are very priceless diamonds. And again, nachamol, as the tzayil ta meisef and at isha tzadkanius, zicha all the bruches will be chalanos. Now to give Agdama, where did I have this chus to have this relationship with the Rebbe and the Rebitzin? It all comes b'schus my mother, who is actually gracing us with her presence tonight, Rebitzin Rabbi Rokeach, and from her mother, my grandmother, Rebitzin Dvoirelaya Klingberg, who her maiden name was Dvoirelaya Schnerzen. Now the Baba was an enical Kama Pomen from the Alter Rebbe, from the Mittler Rebbe, from the Tzemach Tzedek, because we're enical from a Yosachit Yitzchak Mavrutch. So then what came to us, the Rebbe Marash was an uncle, and the Rebbe Rashab was also an uncle because he married the Mima Steiner Sura, who was a daughter of the Yosef Yitzchak Mavrutch. If I can sum up the Rebitzin in one word, it's going to be Malchus, majesty. Rabbi said, I'm not even talking about the fact that the Rebitzin was the wife of the Rebbe, or the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, or the enikel of the Rebbe Rashab. She herself epitomized Malchus. Now again, we all know she was a very private person. Mamish gena Malke, but at the same time mit Hatzna Leches. Zaya behalten, very, very private. She had a very select few people that she showed herself to. But we all know at the same time, while she was very private and Hatzna Leches, she was ibegegeben to the Rebbe, and to Chassidus, and to Chabad, Bechlal, and Klal Yisrael, everything. She was mamish, ibegegeben. But she was Malchus. Now again, Malchus is not something you can buy, you can achieve, you can gain. You're born with Malchus, or you don't have it. And the Rebitzin was Spitz Malchus. Now again, I'm just going to relive, again, what do I mean Malchus? So we used to go many times in the year to visit the Rebitzin in a house on President Street. And we used to go as a family. And I remember these memories. I mean, these are going back 30, 40 years. We used to go back. We used to go to the house on President Street as a beshpucha. And we'd come out and we'd climb up the stairs. But before we rang on the bell, my parents made sure everybody was in tip-top shape, everybody was neat and nice and clean. Because even though, again, that unique relationship between the Baba and my mother and the Rebitzin, still was a tremendous kavod and ema and awe of the Rebitzin. So we wanted to be perfect. We'd ring on the doorbell, and either the Pshalom Gansberg would answer or Chesed Halberstam would answer, and they'd escort us into the house. And it would be in what the Rebitzin would call her salon. And then the Rebitzin would walk in. She walked in, and you felt the Malchus, you felt majesty. Now again, she was not a physically imposing person. She wasn't a very giant, she was a very slight, small woman. But you felt, as soon as she walked into that room, you felt the regalness. You understood. I'm getting chills just talking about it, but her smile, her warm smile, her eyes, her look, you felt, you understood who you were in the presence of. But even with this, that the Rebitzin Gevei Malchus, she was such a warm, caring, nice person. Menar vad zoche, she can be entertaining the biggest, most choshev person to the most smallest child. The Rebitzin cared. I'll give you some memories. Whenever we used to go to the Rebitzin, so the Rebitzin would entertain, obviously, my parents, my grandparents, and again, from a young age, me and my brother were younger, but the Rebitzin always made sure that she had something special for us. Be it special ice cream for us, be it special cake for us. And she really cared. I remember one Chalamoid Sikkis, while she was entertaining my parents, my grandparents, she sent us out to the Sikkah to eat the cake and the ice cream. I remember actually Shulman Gansberg had a conniption because he came in and he saw my brother was sitting in the Rebbe's seat. He goes, stay auf, in the Rebbe's Benkel, stay auf. But the Rebbetzin especially came in afterwards and she said, are you enjoying, are you liking the ice cream? So again, man redt sich wegen kleine Kinder, but the Rebbetzin cared. Just an act of caring. My mother, when she was getting of age to go on Shadichim, and she was coming time to go on a shidduch, I'm not sure if it was my mother, my grandmother mentioned to the Rebitzin that she didn't have nice jewelry. Now, my grandparents were very, very chushev people, but they were very, very poor. They were Holocaust survivors. They came to America penniless, and I guess diamond jewelry was not on the must-need list. And the Rebitzin insisted that my mother take her own jewelry to go on a date, because she wanted my mother to look beautiful, and she wanted to be tzige past, and she gave my mother her own jewelry. Now, Agav, the end of that story is, my grandfather was so scared, he put it into the freezer, and he locked it up, and he didn't let my mother take it, because he was scared she'd lose it. But again, the Rebitzin cared about her. And noch a maiso. I remember, this goes back, Pesach, Mstama, Tovshim, Mem, Hey, Mem, Vov. I was in front of my parents' house in Flatbush, and all of a sudden a car pulls up, and somebody walks out, obviously Anash, you know, and he says, "Du wohnt Rebitzin Klingberg? Rebitzin Klingberg lives here?" And I said, "Yes, it's the Baba." Gives me a huge package, something wrapped in brown paper wrapping, and goes, "Das ist for the Baba, das ist for the Rebitzin." So I go, I take the package, I go into the house, I go, "Babi, the Rebitzin sent you a present." My grandmother takes the package. She opens it up, and there's a gorgeous, gorgeous picture of the Rebbe in a huge golden wooden frame. So my grandmother calls up the Rebitzin. She goes, "Moshe, what's this?" And the Rebitzin said, "Look, I know you were feeling down a bit. You were not in such a good mood, and I wanted to cheer you up. So, Gleib mich," she said, I looked through 200 pictures to find the picture that I would know that would cheer you up. Now, Rabbi say, the Rebitzin was not a Baal Megazim. She didn't exaggerate anything. So she said she looked through 200 pictures and she wanted to cheer her up. And I want you to know, Rabbi said, this picture, I've gone all the years, I've looked for it in Crown Heights, online. I've never found this picture because I wanted to buy the picture also. But this picture is mamish special. And my grandmother had special enough in this picture. Every night, before she went to sleep, she'd go to the picture. Agite Nacht Rebbe. So she really had a know from this picture. And again, my mother has tremendous chfetzim from the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin that they gave her as presents. They bought my parents the first china when they got married. They bought other chfetzim, beautiful crystal, this. My mother was very nice. She had a blanket that the Rebbetzin gave her when I was born. And my mother actually cut up that blanket into 5 pieces to give to all the children, that we shouldn't fight about this chayfetz. But this picture still is a very, very, very chushev zach. Now again, the Rebitzin with this malchus also had a sense of humor. What do I mean? My younger brother, I have a younger brother, Tzvieli Rokeach, Harav Tzvieli Melech Rokeach, who was the Bed Rebbe in Marine Park. As Buchrim, we used to go on Shabbos with a bekasha and a down hat. And then about 15 or 16, my brother decided to put on a Chassidish kappelish. He put on a bibehit, and he put on a different type of Chassidish kappelish. So that was Rosh Hashanah time. And the first time as a family that we went to the Rebitzin would be Chalamoid Tzikis. And we decided to go we're going to Chalamoid Tzikis, and my grandmother sees my brother putting on his hat. And she goes, "999, TSO, get rid of the hat. Put on your old hat." My brother said, "What do you mean, Bobby?" He goes, "No, the Rebbe is used to this hat, normal Lubavitch hat. You're not the Chassidish hat. TSO, Shiali, yes, Achshav." He goes, "Bobby, this is who I am. I'm wearing this hat." And she goes, "No." But my brother, Baruch Hashem, is in action, and he went with this hat. So we come to the Rebitzin, we go in, and my grandmother, the whole ride is, we come to the Rebitzin. The first thing she did, she looks at me, and she goes, "Shami, where's your nice hat? How come you're not wearing that nice hat?" So in a minute, the Rebitzin got the whole picture. She put everybody at ease, and with a sense of humor, she diffused the whole situation. But the Rebitzin and the Rebbe through the Rebitzin had a tremendous impact in our life. Now, versteht sich, everything that we had, every major thing we had, we asked the Rebbe, my mother would ask the Rebitzin, but every aspect of our life, the Rebitzin had a tremendous impact. Lemushel, we were young children. I must have been maybe 6, 7, and the Rebitzin called my Baba, and she says, "The Rebbe geheißen, as is Zayah Pasadik, it's very appropriate that you einiglich go before the outside from the Balatanyas to a Igud from the Tzetzoim, all the einiglich of the Balatanya get together, and the Rebbe says, Zayah Pasadik, it's appropriate that you einiglich go, and it's a gute Zach." So we went, and we enjoyed, and Adi Yom Hazeh, I still have a kasha, Reb Shmuel Butman, all the Chaver there. So we followed the Rebitzin, every single Kleinigkeit. Noch a Zach. And this is what Rabbi Fellow was mentioning. Again, they talk kama v'kama pom in the day, but the Rebitzin used to ask my grandmother, "Ni, when are you einiglich going to my man?" She used to call the Rebbe mein man. "When are you einiglich going to my man for Farbrengen?" So my grandmother would call my mother, "Ni, the kinder darf gehen zu Farbrengen." So my mother told my father, "No, you have to start taking the kids to Farbrengen." And finally, my father listened to my mother, and he took us to the Farbrengen. And again, I was 8. And I remember we went to 770, and they put us right behind the Rebbe on the left side. And after the Rebbe said his Maimer, Kiyadua, the Oilam, they sing, and they give mashka, and the Oilam stands up to say L'chaim. And the Rebbe would say, L'chaim, 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 L'chaim. So I'm this little 8-year-old kid, standing behind the Rebbe, wanting the Rebbe to say L'chaim to me. And I'm standing there, and the Rebbe's going, L'chaim, 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 L'chaim. And he takes a look at me, he goes, L'chaim. He said, Tati, the Rebbe saw me. The Rebbe gave me a smile. Tati, the Rebbe saw me. And Father said, Shem and you, look how many people are on this room right now. The Rebbe didn't smile at you. He smiled at the Oilam. And even as a small child, Tati's right, yeah, okay, fine. The next morning at 8:05 a.m., my grandmother, who at that time lived in the Borough Park, she called my mother. Moshe jetzt geriefen, der erste Sach, was der Rebbe hat gesucht, Nächten bei Nacht, heimgegeben von der Farbrengen, ins haben zwei neue Chassidim, in seine Kreven sind gekommen. We have two new Chassidim, our cousins came. So the Rebbe did see me, and he did give me a Schmeichel. So, Baruch Hashem. Now, again, the relationship that we had was very unique. That we had, when we spoke to the Rebbe, our interactions with the Rebbe was in 770. And our interactions with the Rebitzin was on President Street. And they were never together. And in fact, the Rebitzin was very, very machshiv her time with the Rebbe. In fact, if we were together by the Rebitzin and it was getting late, the Rebitzin would like point to her watch and say, "Es ist spät, mein Mann kommt daheim." And we got the cue. We knew it's time because the Rebbe, the moments that the Rebitzin had with the Rebbe, going kodesh kudeshim. So it was very, very chushiv. But again, anything that we needed in our lives, we would call up the Rebbe, and Kolzman, the Rebitzin was alive. My mother would call up the Rebitzin, and the Rebitzin would get over from the Rebbe what to do. And in fact, sometimes it was almost like the game of telephone. That there was some moments where the Rebbe was actually home, and my mother would call on the phone to the Rebitzin, and that my mother would talk to the Rebitzin tell the Rebbe tell the Rebitzin would tell my mother. So she would get the message. But talking about telephone, for some reason, of the children, I was the Rebitzin's favorite. Now, maybe it's because I was the oldest, maybe I was nois zechein, but I was the Rebitzin's favorite. And in fact, when I was 13 years old and I went to Philadelphia to learn yeshiva, the Rebitzin asked me a favor. She said, "Shemi, I would like you to call me jede Erev Shabbos and jede Erev Yom Tov." So for 6 years, I had the schiyah to call the Rebitzin every Friday and every Erev Yom Tov. Shlokim 68463. It's imprinted in my brain. And the conversations we had, the most mundane, normal conversations, like a grandmother speaking to an anical. "Shemi, make sure you study for the test. Shemi, make sure you have enough sleep." I would tell her, if I tell her I'm going to a bash, and Sims is making a bash, she goes, "Shemi, gebachting, make sure you're buying schoire, because schoire lasts." But we always spoke in English. And chas v'shulim, if I ever called the Rebitzin, she would say, "Shami, my name is Mrs. Schneerson." She was mamash makbid, nochmal, the hatzna lachas. But noch a zach that I had. So Baruch Hashem, hayoim, there must be thousands of shluchim from the Rebbe around the world, from A to Z, you name a city, so a shliach and a shlucha from the Rebbe. But I think I actually carry a distinction, which I think I'm the only one in the world that has, that I actually carry the title of a shliach of the Rebitzin. Now, when my brother, Rebbe Shmeilach, when he was bar mitzvah, he was getting bar mitzvah, my parents decided to go to Eretz Yisrael for the bar mitzvah, and we went to the Rebitzin, to the Zegenzich from the Rebitzin. And we were all there with the Rebitzin, and the Rebitzin, we were in the salon, the main room there. The Rebbe said, "Shemi, I'd like to speak with you." And she took me into like the alcove. And she said, "Shemi, do you have a camera?" I go, "Yeah, I have a camera." She goes, "You know, my man has a lot of shluchim around the world, but I do not have a shliach. I want to make you my shliach." I said, "Okay." She goes, "When you get to Eretz HaKadosh, I want you to go to Kfar Chabad, and I want you to take pictures, and I want you to give me a report of Kfar Chabad." So I said, "Sure." When I came back, obviously, the Rebbe was interacting with my parents, so we didn't say anything. But in the car, my father said, "What did Rebbe talk to you about?" I explained. The Rebbe wants me to be a shliach. Now, why? Ich weiß nicht. But came out of that a moirdige meise. That we were in Eretz Yisrael for a few weeks, and my cousin in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Nochem Schneerson, organized a taxi, a driver to take us around Eretz Yisrael. Now in those days, that the old Mercedes with like the 6 doors, and we had a Russian driver driving us around. And I remember we were in Tel Aviv for the day. We went to the museum there, and on the way back, my mother realized it's time to do the Rebbetzin shlichus. So she asked the driver on the way back from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, "You know where Kfar Chabad is?" And he goes, "Sure, betach." She goes, "Please, we have to go to Kfar Chabad." He goes, "Sure." So he's driving on the way to Kfar Chabad, and he pulls down from the sunscreen. He goes, takes on the picture on one side of Tfilas Derech, and the other side a picture of the Rebbe. And this Russian driver says, he asked my mother, "You know who this is?" My mother says, it's my cousin. The guy, Mamash almost had an accident on the highway. He pulled to the side and said, I have to tell you, you're the Rebbe's cousin? I have to tell you the story. He goes, I come from Russia. In the 1970s, the story took place like 84, and he's telling when he was in Russia in the 70s, he was a Zionist. And in Russland, in jene Juden zu sein a Zionist, going the größte Aveiro. They caught him, and they arrested him. And they sentenced him to 12 years Siberia, hard labor in Siberia. Fine, this Yid comes to Siberia. The first day he's introduced, what's his job? Every day he has to, with Biyadayim, he has to take out with his own hands 2 trees a day from the forest. The kalte, russische, sibirische winter, he has to pull out every day. There was no tractors, no plows. Biyadayim, he had to take out 2 trees. Fine. The second day he's there, this Cossack, this russische Cossack comes to him, the Shaigitz, and says to him, Žid, verscholtene Žid, not only are you going to do your work, you're going to do my work also. And my driver was not a little boy. And the 2 guys went at each other, and they both ended up in the hospital. Now, Siberia in the 1970s, they had enough new prisoners coming that they didn't have to take care of any medicines, that enough people, they didn't need any take care of anybody. And this driver was nebuch in bed, mamish tzahakt, and he's in pain. And also a doctor in a white coat comes and starts looking at his chart and says, you're a Jew? You believe in God? You keep the Chumash, the Torah? He goes, no, I'm a communist. This doctor looks at the chart and comes back and starts giving him needles. The guy says, what's going on? He's going to kill me? But he starts getting better. And the week goes on, but this doctor keeps on coming. You keep the Torah, you keep the Bible? No, I'm a good communist. He comes out after a week, he's better. And he comes out and he realizes something very special. Instead of working in the Siberian forest, the kalt, the frost, they changed his job and they made his job that he has an office job, a cushy office job in the heating. But then he realized there was a pitfall to this. Because every day that he was in the office, this doctor who was probably KGB, is coming and interrogating him, trying to chap him. So you want to go to Israel, right? You want to go to Jerusalem? You believe in God? And every day this guy has to say, no, I'm a regular communist. I love Khrushchev, whatever it was, Brezhnev. A year goes by. And after a year, the commandant, they call him to the commandant's office. They say, the commandant wants to see you. He goes to the commandant. And the commandant gives him paper and says, you're free to go. 12 years, 1 year, what's happening here? He goes to the train station, remember his Lushan, and he's standing at the train station, and all of a sudden, this black car pulls up to the train station. Now, in Russia in those days, the only people that had cars was the party members and the KGB. And this doctor comes out of the car and says, where are you going? You going to Jerusalem? You going to Tel Aviv? You going to Haifa? He goes, no, I'm going back to Moscow. I'm going back. He goes, no, I know. You're really going to Israel, right? No, I'm going back to Moscow. The doctor pulls out, he said, a revolver, and says, into the forest. This guy says, oh, those scissors. That's the end. That's the end of the story. The doctor takes him to the forest and says, who do you think saved your life by giving you medicine? Me. Who do you think changed your job from working in the cold Siberian forest to a nice, warm job in the office? Me. Who do you think got your sentence commuted from 12 years to 1 year? Me. You know why? Because you're a Yid. And you know what? I'm here. If a Yid needs help, I'm here. But you know why I'm here? And he takes out a picture from his pocket, unfolds it, and there's a picture of a man with a long white beard. He goes, this man sent me here that if a Yid needs help, I'm here to help him. And there's many people like me throughout Russia. If a Yid needs help, that we're here to help him. So you should just know Russia's not for you. Go to Israel, you'll be able to know what Hashem is, what the Torah is. And when you get to Israel, you'll find out who this man with the long white beard is, and you have to thank him. And the man starts crying to my mother and says, this is going to the Rebbe. You spät, it was the Rebbe. So A very, very unique experience. Again, so I remember my parents actually stayed in Eitzrul. I had to start yeshiva early. It was Elsman. I came home early. I went to the Rebitzin to do my shlichus. In those days, we didn't have digital pictures. I had to actually develop the films. And I went to the Rebitzin and I told the Rebitzin the story. And instead of me, I expected the Rebitzin, wow. The Rebitzin looked at me and like smiled, like, I know all about it. I know everything. This is not a wundersche Meise. So again, as close as we were with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, I can and again, zoche that nobody else can claim and nobody else can say that they had. We didn't do enough. We didn't nitzos what we had enough. In fact, one thing I regret, ad hayom hazeh, when my youngest sister, my first year in Philadelphia, my youngest sister was born, and it was a very, very schwer leder. To the extent it was life-threatening, but, and this is not for now, but the Rebbe mamish gepravet offen and niesen, and it gerativ my mom's leben. He saved my mother's life. But it caused for certain things to happen, and cut a long story short, that Pesach, my mother had to be in the hospital for Pesach. And my father had to be with her for the Sdorim. So when I came home, Rosh Chodesh Nissen from yeshiva, or right before Yom Tov, my grandmother tells me, Shami, Mushat geriefen, the Rebitzin called, and she says, Vibal Tati and Mami are going to be in the hospital. She wants to invite you that you should stay by the Rebbe for Pesach. So, like a thunderbolt, my mind's thinking, I'm a 13-year-old boy. Now, by the Rebbe of Pesach, it wasn't like Parenshes and Chassidim and Gabuim. It was Mamish, the Rebbe, and the Rebitzin, and Zehu. So this is what a 13-year-old boy's mind's thinking. I'm going to sit at a table with the Rebbe, and what's the Rebbe going to do? He's going to hear me on the Gemara. No, I'm not going. Shami, guy, once in a lifetime. Babi, ich gehe nicht. And Rabbi say, I was also action, but my akshunis caused a loss, something I can never ever take back. Imagine me staying Yom Tov, staying in President Street, coming, being with the Rebbe and the Rebitzin. So I'd like to end this by just, these are some zechroinus that I had, but I'd like to end with an einfall that came to me, grounded 2 years on the Rebitzin's Yutzat, and I think it's very appropriate for tonight. We just had Parshas Beshalach a few weeks ago, and we had Kriyas Yamsuf. And there's a very interesting chazal that talks and says, Ro shivcha alayom mash loy ro chesk ben buzi miyomov, that the lowest shivcha on the Yam saw a greater nevir, a bigger nevuah than the heilige Novi Yecheskel. But I want to be medayik. What's the loshen shivcha alayom? Were there actually shvachas? There were actually slave women? Can't be. We were b'nei chayrim. We just had the gula. There was no shvachas. There was no slaves. And maybe it means that there were poor women. There was like rich women, and the opposite of a rich woman was a poor woman, and they had to hire themselves out as shvachas. It's also not true, because everybody went out from Mitzrayim with the gula, with a rechish gudel, with a tremendous wealth. So it can't be this. So what does it mean? Rosh Shivcha Alayom. So I had the Siyata the Shemaya, especially on the Rebitzin's Yutzat. And I thought to say that maybe in the general world, the terminology Eved, slave, Shivcha, has a very negative connotation. It's a very low demeaning, it's only an Eved, it's only a Shivcha. Historically, these people were like very downtrodden. But by us in Klal Yisrael, one of the highest titles you can give a person is an Eved Hashem. An Eved Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the biggest Novi ever. The Eibishter calls him Moshe Avdi. David HaMelech, the Yisoid of Yiddish Malicha, is called David Avdi. So Rosh Shivcha Alayom, we're talking about Noshim Tzedkonios. Bishvil Noshim Tzedkonios Negali. So it says, Rosh Shivcha Alayom, which Shivchachos? All the Noshim Tzedkonios that saw, and there was zoche, the Gula came because of them. That's the Rosh Shivcha Alayom. That's the Shivcha we're talking about. So the Rebitzin that we know was ibgegeben to the Rebbe and the friedige Rebbe, and to the Chassidus Bechlal ubefrat, we can richtig say, the Rebitzin, sie geben a Malke, sie euch geben a Shivcha of the hechste Madrege. And I'll just tell you, I heard from Shalom Gansberg that one time the Rebbe was home, and I think it was either lunch or supper, and Shalom was taking care of the Rebitzin, and there was a ring by the doorbell on President Street. And Shalom went to the front door, and he saw a bunch of women. And he says, yes, can I help you? And these women said, we are Chassidus from France, from Frankreich, and it's the Rebitzin's birthday today, and we want to get a bracha from the Rebitzin. And they gave Shalom a reshima of all their names. So Shalom took the reshima, and he came into the kitchen, and he gave it to the Rebitzin, to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, what's the days? So Shalom explains to a band of Chassidus from Frankreich, ze willen a bracha, wie bald the Rebitzin's Yom Haledes, ze willen a bracha from the Rebitzin. So the Rebbe said, give us for you. So Shalom gave a smile, and the Rebbe got angry. He goes, for was lachst du? Du redest sich wegen a Freu, wo sie die Tochter von der Tzaddik Adov sein Bracha ist in der Mekuyim? Du redest sich wegen a Freu, was ihr Seide gewinnt Tzaddik Adov sein Bracha ist in der Mekuyim? Du redest dich wegen a Freu, was ihr älter Seide gewinnt Tzaddik Adov sein Bracha ist in der Mekuyim? Und du lachst? So I'd like to end that all the start from here. We must kasha with the Rebitzin. We should ask the Rebitzin, please Rebitzin, go to your Heilige, to the Rebbe. Go to your father, the Friedige Rebbe. Go to your Heilige Zaydes and Beit Zechos. And the Eibishter soll schicken, the Gile Shleimer, Aydei Mashiach Tzedkeinu, dem Heir B'Yameinu, take of Miyad Mamish now. Yasher Koyach.